Hello folks, it's Rob, and this is again Kerbal Space Program. As a little side event, we are constructing a really big rocket, as my cousin has challenged me to do so in a kind of roundabout way. He showed me this thing with 256 boosters, and I thought, well, okay. It was an older build of the game, but that doesn't mean that we can't build something really mega. And I'm in sandbox mode, just for the record. I'm not going to use any mods or hacks. This here is going to be my core. Now, what is it? It's the 3-person, 3 Kerbal command module. We have a stack decoupler. We have some RCS control modules there. We have an inline SAS module, which will help boost the significant amount of weight we're going to have to deal with. This is our RCS tank. Here we have one of the big tanks, and behind that is a nuclear engine, which this is my package I'm trying to get into space. Okay? 3 men get around the solar system anywhere I want. Down here is a liquid fuel tank with a mainsail engine attached to it for the main thrust for this core. Now, this is just the core, okay? We're going to build out on top of this using the asparagus method. And then we're going to throw on top of that some more outside stuff to get boosters on there and everything else, and we'll make something gigantic. And I don't know what my computer's going to be able to handle, but we'll see what we can push it to, right? Yeah. So, I'll be back later. So you're thinking, asparagus method? What's the asparagus method? Well, basically imagine these fuel tanks are like a packet of bound asparagus, okay? And they're all wrapped up together, kind of wound up, and so in a way it resembles asparagus, okay? Now, what have we done here? We've taken this tank to feed into this tank, that feeds into this tank, that then feeds into the central tank. Why are we doing that? Because we're going to lose these in pairs, okay? That means this tank is feeding all 3 tanks down the line. This tank is feeding the next 2 tanks. This tank is feeding the central tank. Okay, and the same on the opposite side. We can lose these in pairs and maintain balance. This means that this central tank is kept absolutely full as long as possible, while this tank is lost as quickly as possible. We can now lose unneeded weight much faster by doing this, and increases the efficiency of the vehicle dramatically. And as you can see, we have more mainsail engines down here, just to keep you up to date on what we're doing so far. I have used 2 radial decouplers inside here on each one, which I'll have to keep track of. I'm also going to need to strut this up some, as it's going to be undergoing a lot of force. Fortunately, strutting's a lot simpler, because I'll just turn it up to 6 and go, hey, I want radial connection like that. And that will help keep it from tearing itself apart, but just to be safe. Because this central package is a lot easier to work on before I've added everything else onto it, okay? And yeah, I know those RCS blocks are kind of lost in there. We'll be totally putting on extra RCS on the outside of this thing later. But right now, I mean, the core needs to be made when you're making the core. These here should be sufficient for actually lifting this structure as it is, but I'm going to want to meet the challenge, as it were, so we're going to be building more. It's the spirit of Kerbal anyway, and as such I'm going to add some struts up here as well. That way these are nice and rigid. Okay. I may throw some struts into the central work as well, but I'm hoping these two sets of points will actually hold these on quite well. And as you can see, I'm already set up here. This is what I've done on the lower stage. I'm not doing exactly the same thing up here though, because this is my delivery package up here, so I don't need to asparagus this core with the nuclear engine. That's actually going to be for operation in space. And I just want to keep this tank and this engine in reserve for the actual delivery. This massive RCS tank will be massive. But, and speaking of that, actually, I should just go and throw on this here, just so that it is there when the time comes. Okay, so I will pick this up at the next bit. Okay, we've moved the R7 Mega rocket on a bit, and you can see now that we have, well, 14 of the big orange fuel tanks in here at the moment, 13 of which are on the lower stage, and that's going to be our core. The outer 6 feed into the first 2 of my inner asparagus stage, which feed into the next 2, which feed into the next 2, which feed into the central unit. So that should be a rather efficient use of fuel and weight. And these are all mainsail engines down here. And then it all stresses up to our as you can see, I've strutted up some to keep it all nice and strong. I've added some additional RCS blocks. For maneuverability, we'll be losing those as we lose the extra tanks. But, you know, it'll all be fed by this big tank up here, so that's fine. Yes. It's coming along. Also threw on this radio dish just for giggles. Sandbox mode doesn't make any difference. But, oh, and I've decided to strip the upper stage here because I'm just going to leave that out. I don't know. I might put some solid fuel boosters on there eventually, but I'm thinking the idea is to get the package out there, and I don't really want to rip it apart with too much stress. So, and if I mount a bunch of engines up here, it's going to want to tear this apart. But as you can see, the outer 6, each side has 3 that feed into the first of the pair of the inner. So that ought to be interesting. I know it's not ready to test, but you'll probably like to see some explosions. Let's throw her out. So it's good to have an idea what the frame rate's like as we go along. That way I know what I'm building. As I imagine it's going to want to shake itself apart, I'm going to launch immediately. Yeah. That needs a lot of stabilization. Whee! But they lived. Anyhow. That was an amusing little diversion, but some of the engines already fell off on the launch pad even before I could even get the thrusters to engage. So, what we do need to do is we're eventually going to be suspending this using structural supports, right? Launch stability enhancers. But I'm not putting those on until we get towards the end. So, again, we'll come back to this after I've done some more work. Right, just doing a proof of concept. I've used the stabilizers to hold it in position so that the engines don't fall off on the launch pad, things like that. And we'll activate the thrusters. Here we go. RCS on, stabilizer on. Kermans are standing by, and let's go. shoot. Well, so much for that test. But I have some ideas. Next. Right, given it a core in our test. I've added some winglets in for additional stability, and I have remounted the central engine. Hopefully this time it won't fall off. We do need to move this up into the main stack because that needs to decouple at the same time we activate the engines. I'm now going to thrust up the engine and RCS and SAS online. My Kermans are standing by. We are ready to go. 1, 2, 3, and launch. That was an abject failure. Let's just beam back the... beam back our failure. There we go. Well, that we're still alive. Bill's excited. Right. That's a major design issue I'm going to have to tackle. Needs loads more stability, but I have ideas. We'll come back. Alright, we've implemented some changes, added some additional RCS blocks, and instituted some additional tiny small monopropellant tanks to fuel those blocks. I also added in some additional SAS stabilizers to the core. So this should help a lot. We'll see. These iterative designs, I imagine this is going to end up in the making of video as opposed to the actual video launch video itself. But you know, if you're curious, I'm glad you're watching. Right, so let's take her up. Bits just dancing around. Oh, this is lovely. Oh, that's amazing. I've never seen that. Oh, that's a lovely buggy glitchy thing. Look at those winglets just dance away as little magical fairies. Oh my, oh my, oh my, oh my, oh my. And everyone lived. Look. Weird as hell. Oh my, oh my, oh my, oh my. Okay, right. What I failed to do is I made the structurals on the same as the engine launch, so that's just a matter of reverting to launch. I effectively dropped the rocket from a height. So, just move that over here. There we go. Okay, set her up. And you're like, why aren't you at full thrust right away, Rob? Because I don't want to rip it apart, to be honest. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, and let's get her up to about 150 meters a second, and then we'll edge back. I can see the RCS is already going crazy. perhaps if I give it more speed, that'll let the winglets actually give it some control. Right, so instead of just doing a conservative launch, we'll do a full powered launch. And again, remember to put that with that. Okay. Try to build up as much speed as possible to let the wings actually act as control surfaces. Here we go. 1 and a 2 and a 1, 2, 3, go. I'm the only thing that survived attack. And look at that mess. Oh dear, 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 oh dear. This is why this isn't a really efficient design, this is more of a challenge. Okay. Oh my, oh my, oh my, oh my, oh my. Okay. I'm gonna have to do some things I don't like to do. I'm gonna have to putting control surfaces on the upper stage to keep that under control, and I didn't want to do that because this is my package. I don't want to have things on here I don't need later on, but as it is, looks like I'm not getting a lot of choice. It's flipping over, and the easiest way to control that is by applying control surfaces to the upper stage. Now, I could try to put even more RCS blocks on here, but that kind of brute force approach is not what I'm after, really. And let's see, canards. Here we are, advanced canard. At least it looks spiffy, doesn't it? Well, they're nifty looking anyway. Is that going to be enough? The winglets also do a nice job. Alright. There we go. Okay, that should give us a bit more stability. Let's take her out. Oh, instead of just constantly doing this. Why don't I just fix this right now? Okay. Right. Frame rate wise, it's not too much so far. I'm still getting 25 frames a second even with FRAPS running here. So, of course it's not operating at the moment, but it's handling the number of components that we have involved, and it's doing okay. So, I have high hopes for making something much, much bigger. Right, let's, why did it only move one of these up? Oh man. Okay, right, there we go. Good thing I noticed. Alright. 1, 2, and 3. She's losing it again. dear, oh 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 dear. Well, that was close. Well, I'm certain that was exciting and fun, but it's still not what we're looking for. And clearly I'm not applying enough solution to the problem. Okay. We'll come back when I have something more solid. Well, after a few iterations and experiments, I think I managed to work out the bugs in my fuel distribution system. And I've added a bit more onto the design, as you can see here. I've added this upper bit here to the stage. And I'm cross-feeding fuel from this outer ring to this stage to keep that topped up, so it will actually be fueled up for longer. Also to help drain this outer stage faster. Those are the skippers. Those are the mainsails. Inside that is skippers, and inside that is one Poodle engine. We've made changes mostly to improve vectoring and also just to make this a little more reliable, as we've had a lot of launch problems. But let's see if we can make this iteration work. I'm filming it, so I have high hopes. Right. Usually happens with mainsail engines. Looks like we're still losing the first asparagus stage faster than I'm losing the outer ring. Carrying that dead weight on up. That's also been a problem with this design, is impacting into itself. And these are empty despite the extra fuel feeds I had put on them. Alright, fine. Do we even have our engine on here? Yep. It's a nuclear engine, though. It won't be enough to do anything. But still, we've solved the tumbling problem. At least that's something. Alright, back to the design board. Once again, having worked out possibly the fuel transfer problems, I think this is going to work for what we want. I strongly suspect the fuel isn't transferring through the nose cones, so I have illuminated the nose cones and set up the transfer directly. I've also removed those additional stabilizers, as I don't think they were actually terribly necessary at this point. And that means less parts are involved and less weight. So, shall we give it a go? I'm talking about 9 frames. Which doesn't speak well for how much bigger I can make things, unfortunately. crashing into the other components and knocking them all to pieces. That wasn't nice. Oh well. So what do I plan on doing about that smashing into itself problem? Well, I have these things. Little tiny solid fuel separatrons. I am thinking I could arrange them so that they fire to carry the tanks away. And that way they are safely out of my hair. Now that's away, but in a bit of a spiral. I think that might work, though. Alright, so I need to make sure that those are on the same with this. Okay, that's fine. Alternately, I'm going to have to make sure I don't, instead of using these decouplers, I'll have to use different ones, and I'll have to rebuild this stage. I don't really want to have to do that at this point. Okay. Those look okay. Alright. Yeah, so when this engages, these little things will fire and throw the tanks aside. Hopefully. Well, no way to know but to give it a go. Here's hoping, folks. I'd like to get on with actually assembling the solid fuel stages. But I didn't have to make it this complicated for myself. The other guy only just used basically solid fuel for most of his stuff. Right. But I wanted to do this differently, because I'm just weird that way. Right, let's give it a go. RCS all over the place, but actually she's not had much use for it since it managed to solve some of the stability problems. And there's RCS ports all over these outer tanks, but as you can see, they're not firing. So I guess I've kind of solved some of the problem then, right? What the heck is that? Oh, just debris, right? Why didn't they fire? Okay. That did not work. Let's try... this way. Outward push. Okay, so that should throw the tank out directly. Only one way to know. RCS on, SAS on, thrusters up to power, and go man go. maybe it's the air surfaces. Right. Right, so if I remove the winglets, because they still operate even after the thing's detached, and they're probably twisting and moving the thing. We'll rely on the RCS ports I mounted. And in fact, what we'll do, move these down to more like center of mass. Okay, let's try it again. SAS, RCS on, thrusters up, and here's hoping. Just in case you're curious what this cockpit looks like on the inside. Not exactly fascinating on the inside there. The Germans don't exactly seem happy. Probably because of the overheat. I got one engine that got through that. Really? It's going to be unstable as all hell, too. Hardly used any monopropellant. I could really cut back on how much of that I've invested in. Alright, well this is a failure. It didn't solve the problem I've been trying to fix. I'll have to come back to this. Okay, further refinement to the core design. I have removed the additional extra large stabilizers off of this core and moved the propellant tanks to the inner core. We are now going to be relying on these stabilizers and this one up here and the cockpit. Hopefully I'm not going to pay a bad price for that decision, but I think that they may have been the reason why those stages were kind of smacking into each other, because they were losing stability and trying to remain in control. So, here we go. Here's hoping. I think I can get by without those gyros, since I've actually managed to deal with a lot of the stabilization problems. The reason I think that is because I've hardly even used a monopropellant. of these things. Right. It's a fundamental problem in the design, then. Well, I was going to be all ambitious and use asparagus and all that crap, but you know what? If I lose all 6 of those at the same time and have them just feed into the central tank, that'll do just fine. Right. Small. It'll be the simplest redesign I can do. I'll just throw this all 6 of those into the same stage using the same engine, and they'll be disposed of all at the same time, and I don't have to worry about them crashing into each other. Except that they're still crashing into the central core, aren't they? Well, we'll see. Right, so where are we now? You may notice some change in detail. So, the outer tanks are now feeding into not only these upper stage feeder engines, but also into these inner stage. The inner stage are all feeding into the central engine. We have mainsails, we have skippers, and we have a poodle. So actually the central fuel draw shouldn't be too strong, but I want to make sure those stages have maximum fuel when they're the only bits left. We'll be losing the draining these outer tanks very quickly. The next ones not as quickly, but they will be feeding not only the skipper engines, but also these LV engines up here. Will it work? I have no idea. Let's try. Right, RCS is on, SAS is on. It's jiggling a bit, which is why our vector is flying all over the place, but Bill's keen. So, right, let's go. Right, all the engines are firing. That's a good thing. We're accelerating. That's also a good thing. So that's good. As you can see, we now have basically full tanks here. And that's great, because that means that worked right. We are not quite keeping up acceleration, but no, there we are. As we lose weight, it gets faster. That's good. Okay, and we're about to hit 10,000. Let's check our stability against our maneuver. So we begin our gravity turn. No, you don't want to go off to the side, do you? By beginning our gravity turn at about 10,000 meters, we reduce atmospheric resistance while at the same time trying to convert our upward velocity to lateral velocity to make orbit. And why do we go to the east? Because if we go to the east, we get to take advantage of the Kerbal's rotation, because we're launching from the equator. So we get a slight extra velocity boost that way. let's see here. Apoapsis is ahead of us. Good. Bit more. Really do want to get to past 30,000. That stage is done. Well, now we know. Well, that was stage 2 being tested as we expected, and yeah, that went and crashed into itself and blew up the central tank. Right, that's enough of that. This whole thing being a right pain. Right, so maybe my problem is my core concept. Do I really need that lower engine? Maybe I should lose that at the same time as I lose all the rest of them. Just don't have any fuel cross-feed between those. Well. The thing about a nuclear engine is that it's really prone to just overheating and exploding. Losing altitude. I'm not surprised. Nuclear engines just don't offer that much thrust short term. And there's a lot of weight there. Yeah, we're gonna have re-entry. Oh well, that's a failure. Right, so what if instead of having fuel efficient, we make that fuel heavy? Make that a mainsail. Yeah, okay. Alright. And we'll want to lose that one at the same time we lose the other ones. So that goes down here. That goes up. In fact, that's made all of that kind of unnecessary. we'll leave it for now. But if we're detaching this one, then the whole lower stage is gone, basically, at that point. Yeah, we'll rely on these to carry this final bit elsewhere. Okay. If I want that to be absolutely topped up, though, you could do that. Problem being, ugly as hell, but why not? Right, we'll come back to it. Well, here's another iteration of the R7 design, this time with some of our solid fuel boosters attached, and prettied up as well. I'm currently running, without anything actually operating at the moment, at 6 frames a second. So I'm approaching the operational limit of my system, but we'll try to push it a bit further. So what do we got? We got these itty-bitty boosters. We got a good bunch of them. I believe we have, I think, 18 of them on the initial stage. Plus we have these large boosters here. There's 6 of those. Then we have some secondaries. Here's in our 12 of the small boosters that kick in after after we lose these first 18. We also have 12 basically 2 outer rings of 6 of the Rockomax super fuel tanks, and then we have in the interior 1 on each. We also have on the upper stage 6 of the more large standard fuel engines and 6 of the RV engines. Underneath here we got let's see, what was it again? I think I got 6 skipper engines in there and 7 mainsails. And of course we have the nuclear engine up there in the upper stage. It's becoming a bit of a hog to handle, especially under FRAPS, so I'm just going to have to go with it at this stage, I think. Basically, I'm hitting the performance limit of my machine. So, this is probably what you're going to be seeing shortly. Give me a second. Okay, I've zoomed back for a better view. Everything's active and go, so let's take off and hope for the best. Currently reporting 6 frames. Well, she hasn't exploded. Or mods, this is all straight stock design. See a lot of overheat warning lights coming on, but I think we're going to be done with those stages before they blow. Well, that was a mistake. So those are out of fuel. Okay. Those are running out of fuel really fast, actually. Okay, that means we need to revise the design. Okay, trying a variant on the engine design. I've swapped out a lot of the mainsails in exchange for lighter weight engines, and I've kept the one mainsail in the middle. I've exchanged the center ring for poodles and the outer ring for mainsails. I mean for skippers. Just in case you ever wondered, yeah, you can totally look around inside your spaceship. This is a good way to make sure things are, kind of put together correctly, actually, as you can see. Ooh. Anyhow, we'll take this out. We'll see if this works better. Okay, she's all set and all ready to go, and I think the staging's set up correctly, so let's go, 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 go. Look at that, 5 frames a second, go! Another problem with the mega design like this is that you can't exactly see exactly what's going on in its entirety over here without having to scroll around. Also, this is vastly inefficient. I mean, really, there are better ways. Now, my one overheat light is from the mainsail. Those tend to operate like this when they're at full thrust. I mean, look, all of that, and I'm still not even at 7,000 meters. And I'm nearly out of fuel on the outer ring. Okay. That's 10,000. Start bringing her over to the east. 2 frames. I'm getting 2 frames. Great. Don't go too far. No, I don't want to plow through the atmosphere forever. We're really slowing down too. Come on. One frame. I'm getting 1 frame. This is almost uncontrollable now. Better if I go out to the Space Center? Not really. Look at that anemic ballistic arc. Engines are just not giving me enough thrust. They're using fuel very efficiently, but they're not giving me enough thrust against all this mass. Poodles were too far of a step down. button doesn't work, folks. But hey, let's watch stuff fly off. And the capsule's been knocked off too. But at least he still has his parachute. Alright. This is gonna need further work. Okay, I think I've pushed it about as far as I can. What do we have? 6, 7, 13, 19, 25, 31, 37, 43, 49 engines on the main stage. Plus we have additional engines that kick in at later points. Let's see, that's an R12 there, and these here. It's an R18. So that's 65 engines. Plus the actual main stage, and so that's 68 plus these two here. That's 70 engines altogether. I'm getting 6 frames still, so here's hoping it just doesn't rip apart right away. RCS and SAS are on. Thruster is up. Let's go, go, go. Hopefully I've done the staging correctly. The atmosphere because it's really heavy and really inefficient. But this was the challenge, to make a really big thing. Some of that staging. It's a little hard to see. As you saw, the staging has not been done correctly. This will need to be returned to, but I'm out of time for today. I was gonna see what I could do in one day. Oh, one frame. I've begun my gravity turn. I hope I have enough thrust this time. I'm hesitant to go and check. Alright, apoapsis is climbing out ahead of me. This is good. But I think I'm going to peak sooner than I'd like this. I'm going to actually go a little steeper. There we go, that's throwing the apoapsis out nicely. Gear up to 70. Kill the engine. Right, we have stages that are, frankly, expended. We've had a lot of problem with that in the past. I'm going to experiment. Turning off stabilization. We will use the cockpit's gyro stabilization to spin the craft. I don't want to fire that one right away, so there we go. This should now allow us to fire these off, and they should pull away on their own inertia. Hey, that worked! Clever. Okay. Now we can turn RCS and SAS back on. Reorient the craft back to like normal. We're about to enter space. Okay. Yeah, we were losing some altitude there. But I think we've corrected it. Okay, vector. Now, well, that stage is dry. Now this lightweight burn should help us achieve an orbit. That's a start. We're going to need to increase our periapsis. Periapsis is, just so you know, the low point of the orbit, and since it's well within the atmosphere, we would actually re-enter. A little hard to get a fine maneuver sometimes. Right, so we need to move this maneuver point so it's outside the atmosphere. I'd like that to be at least 60,000. 70's good. Yep, okay, there we go. That is a largely circularized orbit, but just a little more, I think. Okay. She's in orbit. That stage still has half its fuel. The main cargo payload still has all its fuel. The nuclear engine has not been engaged. We still have an awful lot of monopropellant should we require it. We're in good shape. Well, it may not have been as impressive as the 256 engine rocket, but you know what? That was a big beastie in the spirit of Kerbal space program, really. And I can't complain. I still have lots of maneuver fuel left. I could easily get out of Kerbal orbit. And with the nuclear engine and this huge tank attached, I can pretty much go anywhere I want to in the solar system here. So, that's been it for the R7. And I was beginning to regret naming it the R7. But, you know, sometimes we need to honor the Soviet tradition as well. Yeah. Many iterations, but we're here. We're here in orbit. And we didn't blow up bits. We didn't knock bits off. We're in good shape. I'm going to turn off RCS for the moment. We're just going to use the gyros to maneuver the craft. So you can get a good look at her. Inside that housing is our nuclear engine, folks. Hence the trifoil. You may be wondering, why is it a bit wobbly, Rob? Because, honestly, these half-full fuel tanks tend to slosh and wobble and are a pain. Okay. I think we're ready for further circularization of the orbit. There we go. That burn will put us out to 104. As you can see, she gets away very easily at the moment. So, shall we see what she can do? And you can't trust this, because this is including that main central tank. Yeah, see, we just had a cutout. And again, we're going to play our little trick of avoiding getting smacked by things. There we go. I'm going to ride that out to apoapsis, and then I'm going to engage the nuclear engine. Okay, close enough. Alright, let's blow that housing. There we go. We'll bring up the engine. We're in no hurry. But at the same time, I don't want to waste time. We're going to bring her up so that she's not overheating, but providing enough thrust. There we go. Now, this engine does not provide an awful lot of thrust. This is our atomic rocket motor, and it has a very nice specific impulse in its vacuum like this. It does, however, not have a whole lot of thrust power. So it's very efficient, but it's not very strong. But that's okay. We're well out here, away from Kerbal, on the high end of our orbit, and I fully expect that this will allow us to, over time, go pretty much anywhere we want to go, because we have a lot of fuel. I mean, look at this. Even up at maximum burn, this hardly comes down. But you can't keep up at maximum burn for all that long. As you can see, the engine was threatening to blow up. Your red line on here is much lower than you think it is. These guys seem happy. Well, or upset, or happy, or upset. I don't know. Let's have a look from inside the cockpit. As you can see, not a lot to see. It's kind of boring in here, to be honest. The basic capsule at least had a window, you know? This is like, eh. And that's another thing about Kerbal Space Program. I can't time warp while throttled up. Which means this is going to be a very long time to get somewhere. But that was the point. This was a very efficient engine, but it's also not a lot of thrust. It would never get itself into space, this thing. Kind of wish I'd mounted 3 of them, to be honest. That's a thought. Use a stack tripler. Put that in there. Maybe in the future. Anyhow, that completes our challenge. Thank you very much for watching, folks, and I hope you have a good day. We may very well use this as part of our lesson plan later on when we talk about maneuvers and such. I'm going to share her down. And as you can see, all that time, and we've managed to change our apoapsis some, but we're well out in orbit here. We're okay. Thanks for watching. Hope you have a great day, folks. Great amount of time. So this is it for the challenge. Goodbye.